Hi, I'm Andy with Xuan. Here we are with batch number 41 of the Xuan Tea Club. And this month's batch is a Xuan GABA Black Tea. Xuan is the name of a hybrid strain that was invented here in Taiwan and has become quite popular. It's also referred to as Tai Cha number 12. And it was promoted back in the 80s due to its hardiness in terms of its growing ability in different climates and also its volume. Namely, it mostly has replaced the Qingxin Oolong, which originally was brought from mainland China, and is the second, Xuan is now the second most common tea type or tea strain grown here in Taiwan. So these are Xuan plants, but not any Xuan plants. These are plants that are grown by a farmer who is the most radical natural farmer that we know. He not only uses no chemical farm products, he doesn't fertilize his plants at all. He just allows them to be nourished by the natural weed growth that he pushes down. He doesn't cut the weeds, he pushes them down, and allows the field that the tea leaves, the tea plants are growing in to grow naturally. So the tea plants grow in a field with all the other weeds that pop up in between them, and they are not irrigated either, it's basically an anomaly in the area where he is particularly, which is a lower elevation area. There is readily available water, which is not the case in terms of high mountain high elevation areas here in Taiwan. But he chooses to not irrigate them in order to allow the plants to grow naturally. He's of the firm conviction that he will eventually attain a better, more sustainable farm and as well better quality tea. And he's proven it. We've shared a few batches of his tea. The last one was from the same plot of tea made as an oolong, also GABA. And GABA, the second term in this name of tea, Xuan GABA Black Tea, refers to a processing method where the leaves are oxidized in an oxygen-free environment, which turns it into a nitrogen atmosphere. So the leaves are put into these vacuum-sealed tanks. The leaves naturally emit nitrogen, and the environment becomes a nitrogen atmosphere. He also has the option to pump these tanks with nitrogen from nitrogen gas bottles. But I think for the most part, he just allows it to happen naturally. And this type of tea was invented in Japan as a health supplement. GABA, G-A-B-A, is the shortened name for an amino acid that's naturally occurring in our body. It's part of what allows us to calm down after being in an anxiety-provoking environment. It's a naturally occurring substance in our nervous system. And the Japanese have been marketing GABA products for decades, and they invented this processing method of tea. Eventually, the demand for GABA products in Japan inspired Taiwanese oolong tea makers to go ahead and make their own GABA to export to Japan. And now, just in very recent years, in fact, this is the first batch that Mr. Xie, the farmer that we sourced it from, has made a GABA Black Tea. It's popping up around, but it's not very popular yet. So we've shared a GABA tea that's made in the oolong fashion last year, and now we're sharing leaves from the same exact plot of tea made into a GABA Black Tea. So basically, the difference between last July's batch that we shared with the Xuan Tea Club and this batch is the processing method, the method of oxidizing the leaves. And to briefly describe it, in oolong tea making, the leaves are tumbled in a large bamboo cylinder for varying amounts of time depending on what your goal is and the level of oxidation. In this case, for 2 to 3 hours at a time and repeatedly for 2 to 3 sessions. So that's extremely extensive. Basically, the goal there is to allow the leaves to fully oxidize. With black tea, they're not tumbled, but before the drying process, they're rolled, pressure rolled, so that it tears the fiber walls of the tea. The juice gets squeezed out of the leaves, and all the constituents within the leaves get mixed together, and this creates a more thorough and complete form of oxidation, and that's basically the definition of black tea in general. So we have, for the first time ever, a GABA Black Tea that we're sharing, and it's basically just a different flavor profile. It has a very similar base in terms of its character and flavor profile, but it brings it to a deeper level. It's just richer and darker than the Oolong version of this same tea. And we really do believe that Mr. Xie has a resource that we haven't found anywhere else. His leaves are hardier. The constituents within them produce teas that are richer in flavor and just have more to offer given their natural farming methods. Let's give it a try. I just put 8 grams of tea leaves in a 150 milliliter Gaiwan teapot here. Very rich fruit compote sort of aroma coming. So these leaves were harvested last June and processed as a GABA tea and oxidized to its full capacity and made into a black tea. So the leaves have sat for about at least 8 months or longer. It has the richness of a black tea, but it's still delicate and complex. GABA has a very fruity, like I often think of dried papaya, a kind of banana flavor. I'm getting a bit more tang than I got originally from this brew. So it's this tangy, fruity, sweet, tangy, pretty complex profile that's coming off these leaves right now. That was a fairly quick brew. Black tea leaves, are, given the fact that they're not tightly rolled, they're just curled, tend to brew a little more quickly. Bananas, apricots, papayas, maybe a little apple or pear in there. Very pleasant, very mild, no astringency whatsoever, no bitterness. I think the GABA processing methods just mellow the leaves out that much more. We'll let that cool for a bit. I'm noticing the difference in coloration. I definitely let the second brew go much shorter than the first brew. I can see my cup here is quite a bit lighter than the first brew I poured here. But brewing it quickly, getting a lighter brew, often gives you finer, more subtle notes to enjoy. These leaves are fairly flexible. You can put more leaves, higher ratio, go up to 10 grams per 150 milliliters of tea, and then play with the brewing time, go a little bit shorter to start, in order not to kind of dull out the flavor by overbrewing. We're happy to be able to share a Xuan GABA Black Tea to compare it to our past Xuan GABA Oolong, just for the exploration experience alone, to see what a variation in one particular aspect of the processing does to the flavor profile. There you have it, batch number 41 of the EcoCha Tea Club, Xuan GABA Black Tea. You can read about it in our blogs, about the details of the farming and our relationship to Mr. Xie. We think you're going to like it. If you haven't already, please sign up to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our newsletter to get all these details in full so that you can follow everything we're doing here on the ground in Taiwan. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next month.